Checking range in the spine, passive range in the spine, can be a little bit daunting for the therapist, mostly because of the weight of the torso is such that it's a lot of labor to go, particularly into flexion and extension. Those tests we tend to execute in active range. You don't really lose a lot of the test, you can get all the information you need, and it saves the therapist a lot of energy. What we are able to test pretty easily is rotation of the spine. The lumbars, we're looking for about 25 degrees of rotation, the thoracic about 40. We can also test lateral flexion as well, which we're looking for about that 40 degrees of range in lateral flexion. So we're going to start there. We're going to look at Stephen's lateral flexion, and to do that, we're going to have the client lift up into a seated position, and then they're going to come back down on our arms. And so if I'm going to test the left side of his torso, I'm going to bring my right hand underneath to where my palm is underneath that left scapula. So let's have you lift up, Stephen. All right, right hand under left scapula, back down. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is just slide his body into lateral flexion and just feel where that stop is, which when we get to complete range, the body will naturally stop. And you're not usually, sometimes you'll feel restriction in the torso, but usually you'll see the pelvis go into some rotation or some sort of tilt itself. So pretty clean there. So now we're going to come back to center, okay? And then we're going to switch sides. I'm going to probably disappear behind this plate, but we're going to bring the left arm underneath this time, left palm under the right scapula. So let's have you lift up, Stephen. Let's come back down. So we're embracing the shoulder blades, hand on the shoulder, and this time we're going to bend to the left. And here at the end, we get a little compensation in the pelvis. You can see this hip start to lift up and this hip go into some rotation there, okay? So a little bit of compensation, nothing major, but definitely worth noticing. From here, we can go into rotational assessment. We're going to start with the lumbars. So we're going to bring the arms down into a comfortable position, Stephen. We're going to bring the knees up to 90 degrees. So right in line with the hips. We're going to support the bottom of the legs so they're not working. And we're going to start with rotation of their torso to the right. To do that, we're going to drop the knees to the left. And what we're looking for, think about lumbar rotation. The thoracic spine is more built for rotation, more so than the lumbar. So that 25 degrees, we'll know when it's done because the ribs will start to get involved. Do you mind if we have the shirt up, Stephen? Great. So we're really looking at that costal margin to see when it's getting involved, okay? So about the first 10 degrees is just pelvic rotation, and then we're getting into lumbar rotation. And I'm keeping my eye on his costal margin. We're seeing about right there, we get lifting of the ribs. So it's a little shy of where I'd want, but again, not too bad. Coming back to center, we're going to try rotation of his torso, this time to the left. So I'm bringing the knees to the right. Okay, dropping down, getting the pelvis involved. Now we're in the lumbars. We can see, you kind of see the belly button start to move there. That's good. That means the lumbars are in rotation. And then we can get pretty far before those ribs lift up. So that's good. We get nice rotational range out of his lumbars, really in both directions. Maybe a little bit concerned when we're bringing his torso into right rotation. Now we're going to go for thoracic spine. And to do this, we really have to look at both ranges. We already have an idea of how the lumbars are moving, so that we can use that to help support this test. So we're going to grab the hand of our client, okay? And what we're doing first is we're getting protraction of the scapula, so we want to make sure we get all that out to where we see the ribs start to lift up. Now we're in thoracic rotation. So collectively, 40 degrees of thoracic, 25 degrees of lumbar, 75 in total. We're just really pulling, watching the ribs lift, and when we get to end range, we'll know because that left hip will lift up. So right about there, we get lift of that left hip. Don't be fooled by the wrinkles of the pants. Make sure the pelvis is actually lifting up by going deep into it and really see it lift. So that's pretty good there. That's pretty good. Think about Stephen's body as being flat on the table. This is our range of movement in the transverse plane. So this is about 45 degrees. That would be 90. So we're looking for that 75 before that hip lifts off the table, okay? So now we're gonna check the other side. I'm gonna come across, grab the hand, and we're gonna start to pull. So we've gotten through our protraction, the ribs are starting to lift. And right about there, we start to see the pelvis. You can see it bounce sort of through the camera. Pelvis is starting to lift up. So from a spinal perspective, he's a little bit short going into left rotation. So we're concerned about the muscles that rotate to the right in his thoracic spine.